got this 1986 Honda VFR700F carburetor repaired, and I'm willing to give a little bit of leeway to the previous owner that committed the damage on this thing because I understand how they did it. Now, some of the damage was basically to this sink plate off of the butterfly here. This butterfly is damaged. The old fuel tube is damaged, a whole bunch of stuff. So I think I actually have it where it might be in a state of being able to work. And this thing can be a bitch to get onto the plenum if you don't do something specifically. And I wasn't doing it at first, and I realized I was forcing it, took some time, walked away from it. There's this middle piece here. This is a rigid connection between, what do we got, 3 and 2. And then here, there's a couple, there's one of these on each side. Those screws, those need to be loosened before you try to put this thing on the plenum so that the assembly can actually twist a little. A couple other things need to be loosened, and that's the choke linkage here. These are just set screws on the choke linkage, so the choke will move like this. If it's binding at all, basically just pull these out, let them reset, make sure that the sliding surfaces are lubricated, and then reset them. I was struggling with that for quite a while. Now all of them are working well, and the plungers are going all the way back. They're not binding at all. What I'm going to struggle with most is actually getting this carburetor, well, synchronized, really. So the issue is I just did a bench sink on it, so using a piece of, this is gasket paper, but using this as a feeler gauge, what I'm doing is trying to set every one of these that feel equal to each other. So on a V4 like this one, it's a little bit different than an inline 4. You basically set the what is this carburetor? Carburetor number 2 is the one with the idle adjustment. So you set 4 to 2, and then you'll set 3 to 2. What is that? No. I'm blanking on what these are. 2, 4, 3, and 1. Basically, you're going to set this one, then you set this one. Then you set this one to this one, then this one to this one. Where I'm going to struggle is that this throttle butterfly here, I can see it's physically damaged. I never noticed that before. It's actually curved upwards. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a tighter pull on this one because this one's going to let more air through it. I'm never going to get this thing truly synchronized correctly. The sink screws on this, these are 7mm, so I knew that if I bent that plate close, because of the way that these sink screws work, I was going to have a chance because there's a little bit of leeway with how you can set that adjustment. So I thought I'd have a chance, and it looks like they're all operating correctly. I think I'll have a chance at having a decent sink, not a perfect sink on this. And then besides that, I tried using some thicker fuel line, but I couldn't get it to fit correctly. And now I'm really hoping those new metal fuel tubes and air vent tubes seal correctly and that I won't have any issues on here. So now I need to figure out if this thing actually holds fuel before I put it on the bike. So I will get an auxiliary tank, put it on there, put this in a catch basin in case it just decides to piss fuel all over.
It's a couple days later, and I really have no business trying to get this bike to run yet, but I'm curious. And this carburetor is so much easier to get in to this VFR700 compared to the VF500F, especially because the linkage is right here as opposed to having to fish it through and you just bolt it on. I'm kind of curious to give it a go. I think it's gonna run. I think it's gonna run like absolute dog shit because I found even more damage on this carburetor. Now obviously we're missing that piece there. Carburetor number 1's throttle plate is worse than I thought. I tried to bend it as close as I could, and it's not great. Realistically, it has to be replaced, but obviously I don't have one. Everything on the linkage is moving right, you know. Choke is all moving good, settling back where it's supposed to. This is that damaged spot down there on the plate that links 1 and 3 together. So that made trying to synchronize these or bench sync these a real bitch. I'm curious if I get it running. Could I put some sync gauges on it and just see how far off I am?
All right, fuck it, let's just find out. I should mention it's like 20 degrees outside. the problem. So the choke is off right now. All right, it's warmer now.
So it's a day later, and I wanted to run this bike up to hot. So I put the air box on with a new air filter in it, and it was, I ran it for a little while, and it was much harder to start it today. It was also really difficult to keep it actually running, and I was constantly having to fidget with the idle adjustment and whatnot. And I ran it for like probably 10 minutes, and I was like, I went and grabbed my multimeter because I wanted to check how it was charging and whatnot. I put the multimeter on it, and this thing was charging at 16.75 volts. Which means I have a major issue, which means I'm not running it anymore until that's figured out, because what that's going to do is kill my brand new, $110 AGM Moto battery on here. So I've either got an issue with this regulator rectifier, or more than likely I've probably got an issue with the stator. So I need to be doing a whole bunch more research. I've been texting back and forth with my friend Steve on things that I need to be looking for. And quite frankly, until I really understand what I'm going to be looking for, I don't want to run the bike anymore. So I'm glad that I actually got it running, because that's when I'm able to come and figure these things out. I wouldn't know that unless I actually had it running. The other thing is, and it could be battery related, like I may have a battery that's not very good right now because it's just been draining itself this whole time, but quite frankly, I don't believe these carburetors are actually going to work out for me. So spending $100 or $90 or whatever I did on those fuel tubes, and then another 20 on some O-rings, probably wasn't a smart idea, because I do think I'm going to take up that offer to buy a different set of carburetors to put in here. But I do want to find out first, is this bike worth putting money into, if a bunch more money into? Because if not, then I'm not going to buy a second set of carburetors. I am kind of, man, the couple times I revved it up to like 7,000 though, holy shit, it sounds awesome. And now I'm thinking like, this is not going to be a project I finish in a year. It might not even be, rideable for a couple, but it sounds really good. So this may be something that I keep with. I just know, so I'm gonna have to pull this off, which means I'm gonna need new gaskets. It also means I likely need a new stator. I shouldn't say likely, I'll test it out. I do have a spare reg rectifier that I can try out, and we'll see. I'll put the other regulator rectifier on it and see if it changes the voltage at all. I should probably check the voltage on the battery while it's sitting. But yeah, very excited that the bike is, running. I knew that these were things that I was going to keep running into, so it's all a learning process. So you watched this far. Thanks for watching.